Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this open house of the Instituto Cervantes at Harvard, of the Observatorio of the Spanish language and Hispanic cultures in the United States. Welcome to the Cervantes Observatorio, and please join me to welcome Diana Sorensen. He's the Dean of Arts and Humanities. Please.
Let me add my brief words of welcome to all of you. It's the beginning of our second year at the Observatorio. Judging by how many wonderful things have happened, you'd think we had been in business for much, much longer. And I just want to celebrate the work we are doing together to pay attention to the centrality of Hispanic/Latino cultures in the US. This is a year where we're seeing yet again the importance of Latinos in the cultural, social, and political life of the US. And here at Harvard, we are delighted to welcome you all and to keep doing the wonderful work that's being done. And none of this would be possible without the initiative and efficiency and dedication of wonderful Paco Moreno. So thanks to you and your team, Paco.
Thank you, Diana. So the Observatorio has ready for you all an exciting program of activities and projects this new academic year, including conversations in the Observatorio about Garcia Lorca and Spanish literature, about Spanglish, interpreted from Europe and from the United States, about the participation of Spain in the American independence, about Spanish as a heritage language, or about the future of Spanish in the United States. Next semester, we'll pay tribute to Cervantes with some academic activities and with a big concert in Berkeley College on April 23rd. You are cordially invited. Besides, the Observatorio publishes the series Informes del Observatorio reports, and you will have the opportunity to pick up some of the reports on the uses in this room aside. Nevertheless, in order to explain why we are celebrating Cervantes this 2015-2016, I asked two Harvard professors and very good friends of the Observatorio to say a few words about the weight of Miguel de Cervantes in the Hispanic literature, and also about the American and modern dimension of Cervantes. These friends are Mary Gaylor, professor of Romance languages and literatures, and an outstanding expert on the Cervantes life and works. And on the other hand, Professor David Carrasco, professor of the study of Latin America in the Department of Anthropology. So, Mary, the word is yours.
See if I can keep from knocking this over. Thank you, Paco. I just want to add to everyone else's words my thanks to Paco. He has been the driving force behind a number of marvelous activities, including our marathon Don Quixote reading last semester, our film series, Don Quixote on the big screen. Without his energy and determination to make this happen, such things happen. They wouldn't have, because we would all have been swept along in the press of other events. But it's my job to tell you why we gather today to mark the 400th anniversary of the publication, not of the Don Quixote we know, but of the second volume of his story, titled El ingenioso caballero Don Quixote de la Mancha, which Cervantes brought out in Madrid in 1615. Now, together with the first part, the story of Don Quixote has long been recognized, not only as its author's masterpiece, but as one of the most important literary works, most important, most influential, most imitated, most translated literary works ever written. So to modern readers, Don Quixote's story, to us, usually, his story is experienced as one story that goes from the very beginning to the very end, printed and bound as one volume under one title. We have the historical advantage, although it may also be a disadvantage, of discovering Don Quixote, as it were, whole in his entirety. Our first reading takes us all the way from the inception of his madness to its ultimate renunciation, from the birth of Don Quixote out of the mind of Alonso Quijano to the death of the man, Alonso Quijano el Bueno. But this was not the case for the first generations of his readers. So I just wanted to ask you to imagine for a moment that we have been transported to the year 1615, 400 years ago, and to the fall of that year. A full 10 years have passed since we devoured, with the readers, now the volume titled El Ingenioso Hidalgo, Don Quixote de la Mancha. We remember clearly how back in 1605, to use 21st century parlance, the story went viral. Multiple editions, more than 30,000 books popped up all over Spain and beyond its borders. The coveted copies were shipped everywhere, even to the Indies, all right away. A partial translation into French was out just 2 years later, and more would follow in English and Italian and other languages. In the courts of Valladolid and even of Pausa in Peru, pantomime masks trotted out Cervantes' knight, squire, and damsel to hilarious and satiric effect. Even kings were not immune from the quixotic virus. The 18th century scholar Gregorio Mayansi Ciscar recalls how one day Felipe III, the King Philip III, gazing westward from his balcony in the royal palace in Madrid, spied a student absorbed in reading a book on the banks of the Manzanares. And now I'm going to quote my English translation of what he says. From time to time, the student, this odd duck, would interrupt his reading, clap his hands to his forehead, and make extraordinary gestures of pleasure and delight. Said the king, that student is either out of his mind or he's been reading Don Quixote. And indeed, they found out that it was, and Mayansi Ciscar makes very acerbic comments on why reading Don Quixote in a palace would be an appropriate thing to do. So now we're still in 1615, 10 years into Don Quixote's life in print, we crave more quixotic adventures. Imagine waiting 10 years for the sequel of Star Wars or Harry Potter to come out. Heaven forbid. Well, most of us crave more adventures. Cervantes' hybrid book of entertainment has rankled some guardians of poetic decorum, genre, and Christian morals. One of these brought out just last year in 1614, his own segundo tomo del Ingenioso Hidalgo. You can see all of these first editions in the Houghton Library. We should probably organize a visit where people can sign up to come, because it's pretty extraordinary. This segundo tomo signed, and he's signing himself, Alonso Fernandez de Avellaneda. We still don't know who this unfortunate person was. Those of us who've been reading another recent bestseller from Cervantes, the 1613 Novelas Ejemplares, or exemplary stories, or novellas, not novels in the modern sense, that instantly established their creator, even more than Don Quixote, at home and throughout Europe as the most brilliant narrator of his time. If we've been reading those, we're likely to be perplexed and disappointed. The masked author has borrowed cardboard cutouts but has left us waiting to hear the unmistakable voices of Don Quixote, Sancho Panza, Cide Hamete Benengeli, Cervantes, narrator again. And we wonder, what can Cervantes be thinking about this? Well, I have more to say about that than I have time to say it. It's been quite a year for Cervantes. If you're, now imagine you're Cervantes and you're in 1615. You were born in 1547, so you are 68 years old. You are an old man. You have even referred to yourself in your last satiric work, The Journey to Parnassus, as ya semi-defunto, half dead, 1 foot in the grave. But you are working with the energy of a 35-year-old. Absolutely extraordinary. And in the 2 years that go from his age 66, when that would be 1613, until his death in the spring of 1616, he produces books at a rate that is unlike anything anyone has ever done, anything he has ever done. The overwhelming bulk of the writings he left us were produced in those last 3 years. They are works of wisdom from a man who has seen the world, who has been around, who has traveled to the Eastern Mediterranean, spent 5.5 years in a dungeon in Algiers, has traveled to Portugal to follow the court to try to find favor, has presented petitions in the hopes of enabling himself to go to the New World, to posts in either Mexico or Guatemala, has shadowed the court of Felipe III in Valladolid, in Madrid. But now, in these last years, he's really rather homebound. He lets us know in various documents that he feels that he is viejo, hidalgo, soldado y pobre. He's an old man. He's still a dignified nobleman, half nobleman anyway, gentleman, I should say. Soldado y pobre. A soldier, or a former soldier, but a poor man. He's writing now not for recognition because he's known all over the world, but he's writing in a race against time and because he needs money. He literally needs money. So when he discovers that he has a rival, and with this very unwelcome appearance in 1614 of a rival continuation of his book, he pours on the steam and finishes Don Quixote despite 8 months of delays, bureaucratic delays getting the book printed, all the paraphernalia that goes at the front of books in the 17th century, this permission, that copyright, this license to charge X amount of money for books and to charge it where and distribute it where. And then the approbation of no fewer than 3 censors. All of that takes 8 months to happen. Cervantes must have been fuming. But in the meantime, he brings out another enormous book of 8 comedies and 8 comic interludes. He is a man possessed by a desire to get the things he has been saving up to say on paper and into print. And so I'd love to tell you more about how he deals with this rival. He's very sly about it, but I don't think I will. I think we should just say, bravo, Cervantes. Thank you for that final push. Thank you for leaving us these amazing characters that have really become part of the language with which we speak and with which we think about ourselves, whether we do that in Spanish or whether we do that in any one of more than 100 languages into which his book has been translated. Happy birthday, Cervantes. 29th of September is our best guess because that's the day of San Miguel, right? And he was named Miguel. He was baptized at the beginning of October. So as we approach 468 with him, we say hooray, bravo, and many happy returns. Thank you.
So look, time has flown, and I think we've got to move on to the music, especially after that beautiful, lilting, deep presentation. And if you want to hear what I was going to say about Don Quixote's legacy in Latin America, you're going to have to come to our seminar in the spring, because I think it's time for the music. But let me just say that, following up on what Diana Sorensen said earlier, you know, if you had said to me, I've been here now 13 years at Harvard. 3 years ago, if you'd said to me 3 years ago, look, man, in 3 years you're going to have a really powerful center here on campus that's going to raise up to a university that is still very suspicious and uncomfortable with the Hispanic and Latin world, that we're going to have here a center that's going to be moving ideas, that's going to be creating community, that's going to be making the speaking of the Spanish language in its different fashions and styles, that's going to be a real going concern here. It's going to be supporting students. It's going to be supporting professors, new knowledge. I would have said, hey, man, you've lost your mind, or you must be reading Don Quixote. I would have said you're very quixotic to think that, because we had tried many times, John Coatsworth and I, other people had gone to the deans here, and it really pushed for something like this. We always got turned down. We always got a message that this was a little ethnicity thing that Harvard really wasn't going to support. Harvard was very supportive of African Americans, but it wasn't really going to give its heart, its money, its resources, its name to the kind of thing that's happening now. The reason that it's happening now is because of the work of Diana Sorensen and the partnership that she has given to this center here, and Paco. So if you want to know where Don Quixote has showed up in the New World, it's in this man right here, Paco Hernandez. You know, Diana correctly talked about his orderliness, his ability to get things done, but you know, the man's got an imagination, and that imagination is expressed to us and has drawn us here. You know, when you hear him talk, if you hear him talk about different projects, he always comes back to one word, one kind of symbol, the map. My man loves maps. He's mapping the language here. He's mapping the practices there. He's mapping stuff all over the place. He's a map man. He's a map maker. And what's happening is a new sense of the territory of the Latin people, of the Hispanic language, of Hispanic culture is taking place here at Harvard, still against resistances, let me tell you. There's still resistances here. But because of what Diana and what Paco has done, it's a new day at Harvard. It's a new day that's come. You know, Mary was right. You know, the first copies of Don Quixote got to the New World in 1605, but many of them drowned in the ocean. Many of those copies didn't make it, like some of the migrants today. They didn't make it into the ocean. And there was the first appearance of Don Quixote at a carnival in Lima in 1607. Let me tell you, it's taken a lot longer for Don Quixote to get here to Harvard, but he got here in this man's shape and form. So I want you to give him a big round of applause, and let's bring on the music.
Well, it's not true. The only truth is I am the man of La Mancha because I was born in La Mancha, right in the center of Spain. So thank you so much. And anyway, beyond Cervantes, the reason why we are here is to enjoy the open house, to enjoy the wonderful music from Berklee College School of Music. We always thank the collaboration with Berklee College, Berklee Latino, and Berklee Mediterranean Music Institute. But today we have to express a special gratitude to Javier Limón. Javier Limón is a heavyweight in Spanish and Latin America international music. 8 times, at least, drama winner. He's a Spanish guitarist, a singer, writer, and producer. Javier Limón has been many times behind names like Bebo Valdés, Diego El Cigala, or Estrella Morente. Today, Javier Limón is playing and performing for the Cervantes Observatorio. So thank you so much, Javier, for your music. Thanks, everyone, for coming up. Thanks to the Santander Universities and Santander Bank for their support. And enjoy the performance and enjoy the wine. Thank you. Javier Limón.